welcome to the March 11th Park and Recreation meeting. Got a few guests and visitors here. First order of business is to look at the agenda from 2 months ago. It's been. We did not have a meeting last month. Has everybody had a chance to look at the? No, I'm sorry. The agenda is for today. Everybody have a chance to look at the agenda? Any changes? Would anybody take a motion?
I move we approve it.
Support.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to approve the agenda for today. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now the minutes from 2 months ago. Has everybody had a chance to look at them, and is there any changes or comments on them? Otherwise, we'll take a motion.
Motion to, go ahead, Bob.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to approve and a second to accept the mini minutes from January. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to the Park and Rec activity reports. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. You have 2 months' worth of activity reports from January and February of this year. And we're happy to try and answer any questions you may have related to what's in those activity reports. No need for me to specifically pull anything out or highlight anything. Any questions or comments on either one of those 2 monthly activity reports?
I have one little question about the total individual members, that graph. So at this time of the year, it looks always really low, and I'm assuming it keeps getting larger as the year progresses. Do we have a sense of our kind of year-to-date compared to last year, if we're similar?
I can answer that. The graph is always going to be the low, like most always the lowest in the very beginning of the year.
Sure.
Because a lot of the senior memberships or the senior population are south for the winter. So you will see those numbers rise as the warmer weather comes on. They come back and then they have to re-sign up for their memberships again. So, I mean, there's a big rush in, different times of the year, but the beginning of the year is you'll always tend to see the lowest amount because their memberships, they have not come to re-up.
Yep. Okay.
I just have a question. On some of the categories, they have the compared to last year sentence, but not for all of the programming and programs. Is that included somewhere else? Is there the comparison from previous years, not just maybe the last previous years, but 5 years ago or 10, of the swimming lessons or skating or?
If that's something that the commission would like to see on the reports, I can certainly add that. I just don't want to report on that every month because it takes quite a bit, that would take quite a bit of time to calculate.
Right. So, sorry, if it's not here in this report, is it elsewhere that I could get the information elsewhere, or a yearly, if not a monthly,
I could certainly report on that, do like an annual recap. I would like the commission to maybe advise me as to what information they would like, so I can pull those numbers.
Yeah, maybe we can have a work session to kind of get a sense of what data would be appropriate for us to ask for. So we can probably do that as a group.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we will order those reports filed and move on to city council meeting recaps. Director Schmitz.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. There has been a few city council meetings since our past commission meeting. January 15th saw the city council reappoint Chris Vorwerk to another term on our commission, and they awarded the Renew Recreation Center Architecture and Engineering contract to JLG for $621,000. And then February 5th, they authorized the annual city performance measurement surveys. They authorized a grant application to Alina Health for the Summer Rec and the Go Yoga in the Park programs. They accepted donations. They authorized a grant application to the federal government for the historic revitalization of possibly of Herman Monument. They authorized changing the Renew Recreation Center construction manager RFP from construction manager agency to construction manager at risk, the delivery method. And then February 19th, they accepted the annual deer control archery hunt from 2018 and authorized the 2019 program. And then they authorized the budget carryovers, which happens annually at this time of year, carrying over projects that weren't completed last year into this year's budget. And then just most recently on March 5th, they selected the 5 finalists for the city manager position and approved the interview process. So those are city council actions that have taken place over the past 2 months since our last commission meeting.
Thank you, Director Schmitz. Is there any further questions for him? Otherwise, okay, we don't need to do any action on that, correct?
Correct.
Yep, okay. Then we'll move on to old business, Renew update.
Yes, certainly we'll talk about the various projects. First of all is Johnson Park, the renovation of the grandstand at our historic baseball park. The construction documents are being finalized, and we anticipate that taking place soon. And then having the project bid out within the next month or two, I would anticipate, for construction to begin the day after the section high school baseball tournament in early June. We anticipate the high school baseball season taking place at Johnson Park, and then concluding with the section tournament that we host for the section, and then closing Johnson Park for the construction of the rest of the year in hopes of completing that construction by the end of the year. And then having Miller Park online for the summer season for Legion, VFW, and Brewer Amateur Baseball. So that's Johnson update. And then at Herman Heights, the conceptual plan is nearing completion, and then that'll go to the Oversight Committee of Renew and the City Council to order construction documents. And I anticipate that happening, within the next month or so. And then it'll be, quite a number of months of design by our consultant Bolton and Mink there. There's no urgent deadline to get that project delivered or the design even complete. At that point, then the council will decide whether they want to bid it out and when we actually want to schedule the construction. We probably wouldn't bid it out, this year unless it's very late in the year. Unless we are kind of committing to construction soon after the bidding process. I would anticipate the soonest we would do construction would be late this year or in 2020 up at Herman Heights. And then the 4 projects at the Recreation Center, including indoor water park, the aquatics improvements, gymnastics center, wellness center, and the indoor playground. We, as you know, we are looking for a construction manager, and that RFP process closes on the 22nd of this month. So I'm anticipating in April that the Renew Oversight Committee and the City Council authorize hiring a construction manager who will work side by side with city staff, the Renew Committee, and the architect to work on design. And then design will take place probably throughout most of this year, if not all this year. I would anticipate construction to take place in spring of next year, 2020. Unless we do, unless the design goes quickly and we can get some footings in the ground yet this year, late in the autumn, I would anticipate that would be the schedule there. There's still a new idea that was added to the mix at the Recreation Center, and that is a daycare center. that would be leased out to an operator, a non-city government operator. And so the Oversight Committee and the City Council need to make a decision on whether or not to include that in the package and how to fund that through city reserves or possibly with renew funds. Although I think the renew funds are going to be tight with our existing projects. And then the seventh project is the dome. We still are looking for a location and some feasible options for the Oversight Committee to consider, and then ultimately the City Council to decide whether to move forward or not on that project. I would say that 6 of the 7 projects are pretty nailed down pretty well and pretty well organized, but the dome project is still in flux as far as the potential design, cost, and location of it. We've looked at a lot of different locations and a lot of different possibilities, and we hope to have that finalized in the next month or so for Oversight Committee and City Council decision. I think that's about it. Chris, you're on, Chair Vorwerk's on the Oversight Committee, and if there's any other questions or additions or comments, we could discuss those. Yes.
Just a question. I'm wondering, is it correct to assume, if you will, that like the dome is the last of the projects, isn't it, at this time? That's in the mix?
I'd say it's the project that is furthest from being ready to go.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm assuming that the cost estimates that come in, or the costs that come in for the other projects, will weigh on the dome as well, whether we can proceed or not? Or do you anticipate that there should be funds?
Oh, I think just like back in the year 2000, when we had the 3 projects with the original sales tax, that projects were scaled back because there's a finite amount of sales tax funding. The 14.8 authorized in this reauthorization, and expenses over time go up. And so I think that feasibility and the budget are going to both play a factor in the decisions that are to be made. Back in the 2000 and the first sales tax go around, the City Council did authorize some additional non-sales tax funding, but that may or may not happen this time. I think everyone's focused on the 14.8 authorized sales tax, of which, we don't have to do all 7 projects, and we don't have to bond for all that 14.8. Things can be scaled back. So there's still a lot of flexibility that ultimately the City Council has authority over.
Thank you.
Director Schmitz, do you know, is there any consideration being given to the Herman project and having Herman be open when we have 20,000 visitors late August of 2020?
Well, that's a great question, is timing. Construction timing is important in all these projects. And Herman Heights Renew project is also kind of linked at the hip with the retaining wall slope stabilization project, which has separate funding and different funding. So I'm quite certain the City Council would like to do both those projects over the same construction time period. And a decision or design of the slope and retaining wall project has not been completed yet. There's still a lot of questions and discussion and design options for that slope and the retaining wall. And so, yeah, we would certainly kind of work towards figuring out when is the best time to do that project, and consulting with potential contractors, I think, would be wise. Our summer tourism season, we know, is during those summer months up there, and then Herman Fest is, the weekend after Labor Day. So, It's one of those projects that we really can't do in the winter, or would be most cost effective to do in the summer, and it could mean the loss of an entire tourism season or part of a tourism season up at the monument, absolutely. So that's another a set of issues and opportunities for the council to, mix into their decision. Just as the Johnson Park, project was certainly inconvenient for the summer baseball season, but it's one of those things that you might miss a year or a season, and then you're set to go for decades into the future. We don't know what's going to happen at the recreation center either. There's a possibility that all or part of that building's closed for an extended period of time. Or there may be an opportunity to have the construction take place without a significant closure. There's a lot of details yet, and we're beginning to explore all that with the consultants now. And they've got a lot of great experience, and we're really excited to have that sort of help and assistance in these significant projects that seem to come around every 20 years or so.
All right. Any other questions from anyone? Thank you, Director Schmitz. We will move on to new business now. One item here. Consider allowing quilts to be displayed on the Herman Monument fence. Would you like to talk to that?
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and Commissioners. Item 8.1 on the agenda has what seemed to have now become an annual request from the quilters in town. Jackie Forst of Sewing Seeds is part of a group leading another citywide quilt show, as they have in the past, and they desire to hang quilts on the exterior of the Herman Monument fence and on quilt racks in Shunlau Park. Conditions that staff is recommending we place on this authorization would be that the quilt show must have proper insurance as required by the city, and that the city would assume no liability for the quilts or the hanging of the quilts. And if damage occurs to any city property, the quilt show producers would be fully responsible for rectifying any damage. And so my recommendation would be to go ahead and authorize this request, and as we have in the past, because we have not experienced any significant problems or concerns. I don't think this has to go on to City Council, but I'll be confirming that after the meeting today.
Okay, any discussion on that? This has been done many years, so.
Yes, and normally it's been a commission decision.
So if there's no discussion, would there like to be a motion?
Move we approve the request. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to be abstaining, as Jackie's my sister-in-law. But all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to next item, donations.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and Commissioners. We've got quite a list, as especially this time of year, our annual Days of Play sponsorships come rolling in. So I'd like to read these all into the record. First of all, with the German Park Amphitheater fundraising, received a very significant boost in the arm from Barbara Haraldson of $100,000 cash. And then additionally, Dr. Ann Vogel and Herbie the Hedgehog have offered an additional $3,000 cash. That would bring her total commitment to $13,000 from Doc Ann. And then for the dog park, we had a $50 cash donation from Debbie Christensen and Pups Playland, honoring Mike Hauser. And then here's a list of the Days of Play sponsorships for this year of 2019. First of all, $2,000. These are all cash donations. $2,000 from the Optimist Club, $500 from Dietrich Specialties, $500 from MR Paving and Excavating, $500 from Alliance Bank, $250 from State Farm Bob Webb Insurance Agency, $100 from American Family Insurance Brian McCabe Agency, $500 from the Physicians Group of New Ulm, $1,333.68 from Malina Health New Ulm Medical Center, $100 from New Ulm Chiropractic, Dr. Steve Hawkins, and $100 from Hoffman Construction. Next, we have the 2019 Fitness Fun Days sponsorship of activities that take place at the Recreation Center, and that includes $666.32 cash from two groups each, Alina Health, New Ulm Medical Center, and secondarily from the Physicians Group of New Ulm. The total value of cash donations offered to the city over the past month is $110,266.32. I recommend you forward this on to the city council for their acceptance.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on these? I just wanted to, obviously, we're very delighted with the German Park one, but I think it's also kind of cool the amount and the quantity of the day of play and fitness fun days we continually keep getting, and we seem to have a lot of community support for those activities, and so they're all appreciated.
Another large list for next month.
Awesome. All right, do we have a motion on the donations?
Come on, nobody wants to accept all that money? Go ahead.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to accept the donations as listed here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business here is the German Park Amphitheater design, correct? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and Commissioners. You have before you a recommendation that I would like you to forward on to the City Council, and that is to award the German Park Amphitheater design, construction administration, and observation to Bolton and Mink Incorporated on a time and materials basis not to exceed $65,604. Three proposals from qualified firms were received. You know, we did a complete public request for proposal RFP process. Those proposals were opened on February 28th. They were reviewed and analyzed by the city engineer, the assistant city engineer, and the park and recreation facility maintenance supervisor, and myself. The costs of the three proposals varied from the $65,604 to $67,964, and to the high point of $72,228. So not only is Bolton and Mink considered the low-cost provider of the three qualified firms, but they also have the most familiarity with the project and the site, as they have prepared the 2013 feasibility and concept report for us, and they are also viewed as a local firm. So my recommendation and the recommendation of the city engineer's office would be to forward this onto the city council for them to authorize hiring Bolton and Mink to work on the design. And I think, just another update on the finances of the project. We have about $450,000 in cash and pledges, and we anticipate this phase one. The phase one is going to cost about $500,000, and we have about $450,000 already offered. So we're only needing approximately $50,000 in the preliminary cost estimate for phase one. And phase one is just the base structure of the amphitheater. It's not all the bells and whistles of pergola, shade structure, fancy landscaping, and so on. That will be something we'll consider later. And fundraising continues, and I'm fully optimistic and expecting more money to come in. to complete the project and possibly bring in enough money to do the future phases all at the same time. And I think construction and groundbreaking could take place this autumn, but if winter comes early, it might not take place until next summer. But I'm very confident and excited with your support and the city council's support that we move this project forward and deliver it to the community later this year, hopefully.
So what we're proposing to vote on here, is that designed for all the phases, or is that just this first phase that you were talking about?
That's going to be first phase for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, first phase.
But
for
with the
sure.
ability to add,
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. And the base structure is the major cost and the major aspect of the project. Future phases would be much less significant or smaller when it comes to shade structures and pergolas and extra landscaping and lighting and sound systems and things like that.
all right, any other questions for Director Schmitz? Otherwise,
Move adoption?
all right, there's been a motion and a second to move forward with choosing Bolton and Menk, sending that to the city council. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next up is our New Ulm Baseball Association alcohol request.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and Commissioners. Item 8.4 on the agenda is a request from the New Ulm Baseball Association to pursue the possibility of allowing the association to sell strong beer and wine at Johnson and Miller Parks during the double state tournaments during the last 3 weekends of summer next year. You have in the packet a letter that has come from Bob Skillings, president of the New Ulm Baseball Association. Presently, they have basically a 3-2 beer license at those two baseball parks. And they are wishing to offer all or many of the varieties of August Shell beer at these tournaments and local wines. So that would require a change in their license and possibly even a change in ordinance. Staff has no concerns with this request, and at this point, it's just a request to pursue the feasibility and whether or not we can come to an agreement. As you know, something similarly happened in the past few years out at the Civic Center with the junior hockey franchise, where the New Ulm Steel needed a change in ordinance to accommodate their needs for alcohol beverage sales during their events. And we just worked through the process with the attorney's office and finance department and have not seen a problem with that. And I would recommend that we move forward with this research to figure out what needs to take place to honor their request.
Is it enough time, Tom, for you to look at it before you bring it to council next week, or you're going to back it up? I mean, granted, we've got a year and a half to look at it, but
I'm not certain if it'll be able to come to council next week or
Okay.
not. It may take a little more time, but I will find out.
I'll make a motion, recommend the city pursue the possibility of honoring NUBA's request to sell strong wine and beer in Johnson Mueller Parks during the state tournament in 2020, and have staff report back to the commission, and then move forward to council, or you want to go straight to council with it after you research it?
Does the commission want this to come back to them? I'm comfortable with it going straight to council.
I also am.
Yeah, I don't see a need for it to come back to
Okay.
us. So there's been a motion.
Second it.
Question?
Yes, sir.
So in your research, so to speak, what would that entail?
That would entail working with the association to make sure we fully understand their request and the details of their request, their existing license, existing licensing that the city has. And if there's nothing that fits quite what we're looking for at the parks, there would be a proposed ordinance change.
It's real similar to the New Ulm Steel license, what we had
that's
to
what
do.
we had. That's what we did for the Civic Center also. So I think it's a reasonable request, and we will pursue what options exist and then seek council approval.
Thank you.
Can I just say that when I saw it on the agenda about the liquor license, my first thought was, how do we get in there that it could be a local beer and the local wines? And then I saw in the letter that the Bob Skillings, the president of the New Ulm Baseball Association, wrote that he had it in there. So I appreciate that. So.
And that's the main reason for this request, is to be able to showcase
Right.
not just Shell's, but the local wines as well.
Right.
All right. There was a motion, but was there a second?
Yes.
There was, okay. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay, gotta find my way through the iPad here. All right, German Park Amphitheater Carl and Verna Schmidt Foundation grant application.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and Commissioners. Item 8.5 of our agenda has a request for you to forward onto the City Council for their authorization for us to apply for a Carl and Verna Schmidt Foundation grant for up to $20,000 to assist in funding the renovation of the German Park Amphitheater. This is a long-standing foundation out of Rochester that has funded projects over a very wide area, including numerous projects in New Ulm. And I have had preliminary verbal discussions with them that it sounds like our project fits their criteria, and that they are hoping that we send them an application. So I would suggest you send this to City Council for their authorization to apply for a $20,000 grant to the Schmidt Foundation of Rochester.
All right, yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we got a motion
Second.
and a second to apply for a grant from the Carl and Verna Schmidt Foundation of Rochester. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, that concludes our new business. Staff reports.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and Commissioners. I think in the next month's agenda, we'll have more of a list like we've had in the past, an update of projects and the various process that they're in. I'm just going to mention a few things at the meeting here today, and number one being the weather. The Park and Recreation staff has been asked by the Emergency Management Organization here locally and the Public Works Department for some assistance with storm sewers. We know that rain's coming this week, and so Park and Rec is going to shift from flooding the outdoor rinks at Harmon Park to helping chop open the storm sewer intakes and the catch basins on our city streets to try to minimize street flooding coming here soon and throughout the spring. So we are in transition of seasons. The Civic Center saw the farm show cut short because of the weather this past weekend, and the annual Joe's Camper Show has moved in. I'm sure it's going to open in a couple of days, but they started moving campers in yesterday. And so that whole spring season is coming at the Civic Center. The Home and Health Show takes place the following weekend after the Camper Show this week and coming weekend. And then it's a double wide garage sale after that. And then we put ice on the north side for the adult hockey tournament, the annual men's hockey tournament that takes place in April. Let's see here, other projects, we're just kind of, we're planning the authorized projects for the year. The big one, the boiler replacement at the Recreation Center, and figurines and control replacement at the Glockenspiel. And our one vacancy of, we have 5 maintenance workers that are union employees, and one of those vacancies, because of retirement, is kind of nearing completion. We have quite a number of applicants, and we'll be interviewing those applicants this week, and hopefully filling that void in the very near future from a staff standpoint. And then the programming division, Liz Malloy and Sandy Bromley are working diligently on preparing for our next season. Brochure will come out, I think it's in April.
March 31st.
March 31st, spring and summer program brochure comes out.
So then we need another picture.
Pardon?
Do we need another picture then?
We used the one taken at the last meeting.
Team photo, yes. Please. So, I think those are some of the highlights. If there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to further discuss them.
Will this complete the figurine replacement, or will we have some further to go after this year?
This year is planned to be the last. I think it's like 5 of the 22 figurines. So it's been about a 5-year process, and they're about $9,000 to $10,000 each to go from paper mache to fiberglass and epoxy. We won't have to replace those for decades into the future. And so, yes, replacing the controller in the Glockenspiel and having the figurines done will, relieve some repair and replacement needs at that facility.
Any other questions or comments for Director Schmitz? All right. Going to commissioner reports. Does anybody have anything? I'm going to assume no.
Chair, excuse me, there's one more announcement I might be interested in making now. It's, we have received preliminary approval from the Minnesota State Hockey Board that the Hockey Association's application for hosting a state tournament in 2020 has been approved. So preliminarily, we are going to be hosting the Bantam B and the Pee Wee B state championships in March of 2020 at the Civic Center. So I'd say it's a 95% probability, and it's something that we're very excited. About 10 years ago, we hosted state hockey tournaments at the Civic Center, and I think it could be a very big year. We're doing state baseball amateur tournaments in 2020, and now it appears that we'll have some youth state hockey tournaments hosted in town here in the spring, March of 2020. So once that's confirmed, I'll bring it back to the commission to verify it with you.
Excellent. All right. Well, our next meeting is going to be Monday, April 8th, 2019. And if there's no more business, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.